Pleasing core Pokemon fans is about as easy as gluing jello to an oiled pig on the run, and Game Freak has been scrambling the yard ever since Sword and Shield blew up the internet in 2019. So with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet just around the corner, what do they have to achieve to succeed? Hey Charles, it's everyone, how are you today? We are just a month away from the release of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and the excitement for these two video games is coming to a boil. That said, despite commercial success and relatively warm reviews from critics, Scarlet and Violet's main predecessors, Sword and Shield, polarized fans before they were even released back in 2019, igniting everything from grunts of dissatisfaction to unbridled man-screaming across the fandom, the ripples of which can be felt to this day. And although the probabilities of Game Freak winning over the praises of the most adamant Pokecritics is lower than the body fat percentages at an equestrian competition, one has to wonder, how could Pokemon Scarlet and Violet net a big W when the haters are expecting the airball? So today's plan is to bust out the juicy nuggets regarding the two major factors upon which the success or failure of Generation 9 are hinged, in my opinion, right after a quick word about a fun and free 3D world building tool. Yahaha is a brand new UGC creation platform that lets anyone create and share their own interactive 3D multiplayer experiences online, all without a gram of coding experience thanks to Yahaha Studio's enormous library of game components and smart assets. Last time we talked about Yahaha, I showed you a relaxing forest retreat that I'd put together, but following my third quarantine in 5 months, I wanted to party it up a little bit, so this time I made a nightclub. It's easy peasy lemon squeezy to drag and drop assets and customize the environments in Yahaha, so I was able to get my place together lickety split. Now, I just need some friends to join the party. And fortunately, Yahaha has a social and fun multiplayer mode by which you can get together with friends in your templates and games, as well as meet new friends whenever you want through Yahaha's countless immersive 3D spaces and like-minded communities, transforming creative ideas into fun virtual games to enjoy together online with old friends and new friends in the Yahaha universe is a ton of fun, so be sure to get early access to Yahaha Studio for free by clicking the link below. Thanks to Yahaha for sponsoring this video, and with that said, have fun creating, sharing, playing, and let's proceed to today's chat. Firstly, it is undeniable that Pokemon Sword and Shield were a financial home run, moving 24.27 million units by March 2022 to become second only to the original duo of games in terms of lifetime sales, and to become the 5th best-selling games on Nintendo Switch thus far, with nearly a 1-to-4 game-to-Switch attach rate. Pretty impressive, I must say. That said, I have never seen a Pokemon game ripped on so hard in the history of the franchise. Indeed, in the months leading up to and immediately following the game's launch, Game Freak got enough explosive wedgies to leave the underwear section at Uniqlo sold out for months. It wasn't pretty, and the main criticisms were directed at graphics and animation that looked rudimentary compared to the efforts of other Nintendo Switch developers, environments as linear as AX plus BY equals C, visually interesting towns that turned out to be lifeless husks with hardly anything to do in them, boring characters, a $30 post-game, mandatory EXP share, the symbolic end of the national dex, etc, etc. Some of the pushback was probably unfairly amplified by the supersonic whiny phone wielded by a mob who acted as if Junichi Masuda had just eaten their children, but I don't think it is a stretch to say that the game felt a lot more rushed and a lot more shallow than one would have hoped. I found the empty towns, shallow world feel, and linearity particularly disappointing, and while I still had fun playing the games, it was clear that they exacerbated the problems that had emerged back in XY rather than improving the core 3D era issues. But Scarlet and Violet could represent a long-awaited turning point, and fortunately Game Freak has already won back a fair bit of good faith from disgruntled fans with their 2022 New Year surprise. An unexpected treat that delighted Pokemon fans for a number of reasons. For instance, its vast open areas were thrilling to navigate and dangerous. Catching Pokemon in real time was a refreshing twist. Being vulnerable to attack from wild Pokemon ramped up the intensity. The research tasks presented an enjoyable alternative to the classic Pokédex quest. Characters like Arceus and Adaman stirred the loincloths of many an adventurer. The quality of the Pokemon animations elevated the world feel to new heights. Forgotten Pokemon like Paris found new relevance as the region's demonic overlords. And all in all, the Hisui region was a cohesive, believable region that was fun to explore. Legends Arceus made Pokemon feel fresh and exciting again for the first time in ages, and fans ate it up like hot Denny's after a questionable night out on the town. And bearing in mind fan reactions to both Sword and Shield and Legends Arceus, from what I can see, how successful Scarlet and Violet are in the eyes of core fans will depend largely on how well they expand upon what Arceus achieved, and also how well they sidestep or improve upon Sword and Shield's biggest shortcomings in two areas: the fullness of the world and the richness of the world. It isn't exactly groundbreaking to release an open world game these days, with publishers and developers becoming eager to capitalize as games like Skyrim and Breath of the Wild turned the genre into a full-on phenomenon. But the truth is that not many games do a truly great job at executing the concept. For every Skyrim, Breath of the Wild, or The Witcher, loaded to the brim with a variety of side quests, secret dungeons, enjoyable resource collection, and crafting mechanics, and seemingly endless secrets to discover, there are a dozen One Piece World Seekers, Mafia 3s, and No Man's Skies with repetitive, uninspired missions, emptiness, a dearth of incentives to explore the open landscapes, and a watered-down, incohesive world feel. Bigger isn't always better, and freedom doesn't always equal fun, as a lot of open worlds simply don't feel full, lacking the exciting side quests, gameplay loops, and secrets that make exploring a vast open landscape meaningful. And while I don't think anyone is expecting Scarlet and Violet to be Red Dead Redemption 2, it would be pretty disappointing to see the vacuousness of Sword and Shield blown up into a full open world experience wherein the fullness of the world is more important than ever. The world of Pokemon Legends Arceus was divvied up into large, distinct biomes that gave players a taste of what a fully open world Pokemon game might look like. And the environments were pretty fun to traverse thanks to often intense encounters with wild Pokemon, the refreshing catch mechanics, and of course, the research tasks. It was a good time. But Pokemon Scarlet and Violet will be the first Pokemon game to jump all the way into the open world deep end, so one would hope that with the training wheels off, it can still overcome the brand of emptiness and randomness that plagues so many open world experiences. As we now know, Scarlet and Violet is built upon three intertwining storylines: Victory Road, the traditional gym quest, the Path of Legends, wherein players track down rare herbs guarded by Titan Pokemon, and Starfall Street, wherein players take down squads of delinquents at bases scattered around Paldea. It looks like the game does have a good framework in place to facilitate the joys of exploration, and one of the advantages that Pokemon will have over many other open world games is that on top of this framework, it's a lot of fun simply wandering and encountering new types of Pokemon to catch. So on paper, it looks like the open world of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet probably will be full of fun things to do. And hopefully there are plenty of fun side quests and hidden areas to encourage exploration, as well as hard to find legendary Pokemon thrown into the mix. We will have to wait until November 18th to see for sure, but if Game Freak can successfully expand upon the foundation laid in Legends Arceus by creating an open world that is full of fun things to do, then it will be a big win. And on a related note, another key to Scarlet and Violet's success will be to undo the wrongs of the 3D generation that culminated in Sword and Shield with regard to the richness of the world. The fullness of the world refers to there actually being meaningful things to do, and the richness of the world refers to there actually being meaningful things to feel. And by that, I mean that these games need to succeed at establishing a strong, immersive world feel by setting up a believable culture backed by rich characters and lore. Or else, even the most quest-packed open world will feel somewhat janky and incomplete. Compared to earlier entries in the series that practically oozed personality and lore, Sword and Shield gave us 1950s dummy towns populated by NPCs from whom we could glean barely anything substantial about the history of the world they lived in, who they were, or how their communities functioned. I wanted to get immersed in the world of Galar, but the level design did not facilitate that desire, and neither did the characters, the flavor text, or the underwhelming towns that looked cool but were little more than empty husks with very little aside from aesthetic differences to distinguish one from the next. One of my favorite aspects of any RPG is just walking around town talking to NPCs, learning about the history of the area, and enjoying the vibes. So this was really disappointing. For example, Winden wasn't just a missed opportunity to finally show players what a bustling metropolis of the Pokemon world could look like with the power of a home console at its back. Rather, it turned out to be downright jarring to finally arrive in town only to see it about as lively as a lemonade stand in Siberia. Compared to lore and content-rich megacities like Unova's Castelia City, or even Goldenrod City on the Game Boy, it felt vacuous and uninteresting, and its flaws were even more pronounced on account of its 3D environment. The same could be said of just about every town in Pokemon Sword and Shield. There were plenty of visually cool locales and characters, but very little about the world of Galar was rich or immersive. Even the most promising towns were sorely lacking in meaningful content or unique elements, aside from their aesthetic differences, and having the same spattering of NPCs cities and copy-pasted house interiors didn't do much to enhance the world feel either. This lifelessness would be even more jarring in a set of games that need to be grounded more than ever in the richness of the world, so one would hope that Scarlet and Violet get this right. That the world's people and Pokemon truly fit in and feel as if they are a part of something bigger, that the world is full of lore and interesting flourishes that speak to its culture, and that the story ties together its promising concepts into a truly rewarding package. Without that richness, it won't come close to the brilliance of gaming's best open worlds, regardless of how much there is to do. I'm sure we all have our wish list items for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, but I really do think that the fullness of the world and the richness of the world are what matter the most for this particular outing to be a success as a follow-up to both Sword and Shield and Legends Arceus. The three storylines sound fun, the new Pokemon look cool, and the new Swarovski Crystal Animal Collection battle mechanic looks subtle and interesting. But in just over a month, we will finally see if the world underpinning it all is actually worth the wait. And whether or not, it will do the impossible, please Pokemon's most critical fans. And I can't wait to see how everything unfolds, but how about you?